It was one of those scorching, hot mornings in the Mojave Desert, the kind where the air already tastes like dust and regret by 7 a.m. And honestly, I still get chills thinking about the sound. That crack sound. You know, that sickening, wet sound when a fist connects with bone. It echoed across the parade ground at Fort Sterling, stopping 30 young recruits dead in their tracks. You think you can handle a real fight, Cupcake? That was Staff Sergeant Max Thorne, all 6'3" of him, standing over Private Maya Vance. His massive combat boot was inches from her face. His chest heaving, his eyes burning with that familiar, ugly mix of frustration and contempt. Maya was barely 5'5", covered in the fine, dark desert grit, a thin line of blood already tracing its way from her split lip down her chin. Thorne had just struck her hard during a mandated hand-to-hand drill, going way beyond the standard tough love everyone expected. "Stay down where you belong," he sneered. And I swear every single one of us in Delta Platoon felt sick. Thorne, he was a legend, 15 years in the service, called the Anchor, because he believed every problem had to be smashed into submission. He was the lead combat instructor, built his reputation on breaking recruits who thought they were tougher than they actually were. What Thorne didn't know, couldn't possibly have known in that moment, was that he wasn't just standing over a shaken recruit. He was standing on a landmine, and the detonation sequence had just begun. Because within the next 7 minutes, 4 full colonels would be tearing across the base, and Thorne's career, his whole 15-year identity, would be vaporized before the lunch bell even rang. Before we dive back into the chaos, hit that like button and tell me where you're tuning in from, because this is a story about how the quietest person in the room can actually be the most powerful, and it definitely touched me. Maya lay still for only about 3 seconds, just long enough for the shock to wear off, her dark braid spilling out from under her helmet. To the untrained eye, which was all of us, minus Thorne and the other instructors, she just looked like another soft recruit who'd finally bitten off more than she could chew. But Maya wasn't soft. For the past 8 weeks, she'd been a ghost. She never boasted, never drew attention, but she had perfect scores in marksmanship, tactical awareness, and physical fitness. She carried herself with this quiet, unassuming modesty, volunteering for the worst details without complaint, making her truly invisible in an environment designed to scrutinize every detail. "Something wrong with your hearing, recruit?" Thorne stepped closer, his breath smelling like stale coffee and desperation. "I said stay down." He grabbed her vest, lifting her slightly off the ground, that deep growl in his throat. "Your daddy might have pulled strings to get you here, Vance. But Daddy isn't here to protect you now. I remember Marcus, a farm kid from Nebraska next to me, later telling me he felt physically ill. Like this wasn't just tough training, it was personal. It was cruel. But Maya, she just met Thorne's furious glare with steady dark brown eyes. No fear, no anger, just a terrifying, controlled calmness, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment to arrive. "No, sir," she replied, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the silence. "My hearing is fine." "Then drop and give me 50 push-ups," Thorne commanded, releasing her, clearly enjoying the public spectacle of her humiliation. "And while you're down there, think about whether you really belong in my army." As Maya dropped perfectly into push-up position, wiping the blood from her lip, nobody noticed the tiny, black device clipped beneath the canvas belt of her uniform. It was barely the size of a thumbnail, and it had been blinking an urgent, silent red since the second Thorne's fist made contact. That device was military-grade, fully encrypted, and connected to a network that monitored the location and vital signs of certain high-value personnel 24 hours a day. 3 miles away, in the secure communication center beneath the command HQ, Sergeant First Class Gina Lopez stared at her screen in utter disbelief. The alert code was one she'd never seen in her 6 years of service, a classification so high it automatically triggered protocols reserved only for the most catastrophic national security crises. "Ma'am," she called to her supervisor, Master Sergeant Holloway, her voice tight with confusion. "I'm seeing a Code 7 alert from Training Ground 7. The system is showing—" "This can't be right." A Code 7 meant that someone with top-level security clearance was under immediate physical assault. The kind of clearance held by only a handful of people in the entire military structure, maybe 10 people on that entire installation. Holloway, a tough woman who'd seen everything, went paper white as she read the alert details and immediately snatched up the bright red secure line that went straight to General Peterson's office. "Sir, we have a situation," she said the second the general answered. "We're showing a Code 7 alert. According to the system, someone with Level 9 clearance is currently under physical attack." The general didn't hesitate. "Lock down that training area. Nobody in or out. Scramble the response team now." That response team was 4 full colonels who were already in motion. Tearing across Fort Sterling in unmarked black SUVs, their destination Training Ground 7, where Staff Sergeant Max Thorne was about to learn that the quiet recruit he'd just assaulted was someone he absolutely, definitively, should never have touched. The truth about Maya Vance was hidden behind a cover so deep, so meticulously crafted it was brilliant. On paper, she was Maya Vance, 24, daughter of a retired forest ranger, graduated from a state college with a degree in international relations, a background unremarkable to the point of being utterly forgettable. This was intentional. She was known as the Anchor's shadow among the other instructors because she required zero supervision and never caused a problem. She could disassemble, clean, and reassemble her rifle blindfolded faster than anyone else. But she'd finish early and spend the remaining time quietly helping others. In tactical exercises, she displayed an intuitive grasp of battlefield dynamics that impressed visiting officers, yet she always deflected praise by crediting her teammates. We, her fellow recruits, found her both impressive and puzzling. She was unfailingly helpful, offering assistance with equipment and procedures with the kind of patient expertise that suggested years of real experience. Not just 8 weeks of training. She knew things, Marcus, the Nebraska kid, told me one night. Not book stuff, practical stuff. How to move silent through rocks, how to maintain a radio in a dust storm. When I asked where she learned it, she'd just smile and say she saw it in a documentary. But the biggest hint was her ease with technology. While we struggled with the sophisticated comms and navigation gear, Maya operated the systems with an almost intuitive understanding, troubleshooting malfunctions that stumped the technical instructors. Master Sergeant Holloway, the one who took the general's call, had actually noted these anomalies in her weekly reviews. Vance's file was consistently exceptional. Yet somehow her name never appeared on any commendation lists. It was as if someone had specifically designed her military record to be invisible. What none of us, not Thorne, not her bunkmate, not the instructors understood, was that Private Maya Vance was a carefully constructed facade, coordinated through classified channels that operated entirely outside normal military assignment procedures. Her real identity was protected by safeguards so sophisticated that even a routine physical assault triggered a literal Pentagon-level response. The confrontation reached its peak when Thorne, frustrated by his inability to break her composure or her perfect form, tossed the rulebook out the window. "You think you're better than everyone else, don't you?" he snarled, throwing a vicious right cross that had nothing to do with training. "Time to learn what real combat feels like." Maya deflected the blow with a movement so fluid and precise it was breathtaking. A counter-movement executed with the kind of economy of motion that takes years, maybe decades to develop. The automatic response of someone who had faced genuine life-or-death situations. For a second, her carefully maintained cover slipped, revealing glimpses of expertise that belonged to an entirely different league of soldier. Thorne saw defiance, not skill. His face flushed a deep crimson. "You want to embarrass me in front of my recruits?" he screamed. "Let's see how tough you really are when the gloves come off." The situation spiraled into an all-out assault. Maya's body reacted with trained instinct, developed over years where hesitation meant death. In a blur, she redirected Thorne's momentum and had him flat on his back, his arm twisted in a submission hold that could have permanently damaged his shoulder. The training ground fell silent. Maya, the quiet recruit, had just demonstrated combat skills that belonged to special operations, but Thorne's rage and humiliation had passed the point of no return. As Maya released the hold and offered her hand in a final gesture of de-escalation, he rolled to his feet, eyes burning with murderous intent. "You think you're some kind of special forces badass?" he shrieked, ignoring her hand. "I'll show you what happens to recruits who forget their place." He lunged, throwing a backhanded strike with the full intention of causing maximum damage. The blow connected with Maya's face with a horrible, wet sound that made several recruits gasp. Blood flowed freely from her nose and lip. This second strike, the definitive criminal assault, triggered the final, ultimate sequence in the automated response. Deep within the secure servers, the device monitoring Maya's vitals transmitted not just trauma data, but identification codes that instantly connected to classified databases across the Pentagon, the CIA, and other agencies whose existence was above the pay grade of anyone at Fort Sterling. Then, we heard them, the roar of the engines. The 4 black SUVs tore onto the training ground, kicking up massive clouds of dust, emergency lights flashing in a pattern that instantly commanded attention. 4 full colonels, 4 stars above Thorne's staff sergeant rank, were on site. Colonel Mitchell, the intelligence officer, stepped out first, her voice a whip crack across the desert air. "Sergeant Thorne, step away from the recruit immediately and assume the position of attention." Thorne, his face a grotesque mask of rage and dawning panic, finally froze. He looked from Maya, bleeding but perfectly composed, to the 4 colonels, realizing this was not a routine disciplinary matter. This was a national security incident focused entirely on him. "Sir, I was conducting routine combat training," he stammered, trying to justify himself. "This recruit was showing disrespect for authority." Colonel Chen cut him off, his voice ice cold. "Sergeant, you will remain silent until specifically authorized to speak. You are being relieved of all training responsibilities pending a full investigation into your conduct. Military police are en route to escort you to detention pending formal charges." The word detention hit us harder than any punch Thorne had thrown. This was the end, the final. Gut-wrenching moment came when Colonel Mitchell, her tone formal, professional, and respectful, the kind of respect never shown to a recruit, addressed Maya. "Private Vance," the colonel said. "For the record, and in the presence of these witnesses, please state your full name, rank, and service identification." "Maya." "Major Ka." I still slip up sometimes, wiped the blood from her mouth with the back of her hand. Her posture was alert, professional, her eyes steady. When she spoke, her voice wasn't a whisper. It carried the effortless authority of someone accustomed to giving orders. "Major Alexandra Ka, United States Army Intelligence and Security Command. Service number classified, currently assigned to Operation Night Watch. Undercover designation, Private Maya Vance." The silence that followed was total. I looked at Marcus, and I think his jaw actually dropped. Major. We had been sharing a barracks with a major, an intelligence officer whose mission involved national security operations far above our clearance level. Every single interaction over the past 8 weeks had been part of a deep cover operation. The perfect scores, the secret skills, the invisibility, it all clicked into place, terrifyingly, brilliantly. Thorne, the man who prided himself on breaking recruits, simply staggered backward, his face drained of color, the full realization of his folly crashing down on him. He hadn't just assaulted a subordinate. He had attacked a superior officer on a classified mission, risking treason charges for compromising national security. "Sergeant Thorne," Major Ka said quietly, her voice steady despite the blood still trickling down her chin. "Your lack of knowledge regarding my actual assignment does not excuse assault on any soldier under your command. The fact that I happen to be a major conducting classified operations is irrelevant to your decision to use violence against someone you believe to be a subordinate." That was the nail in the coffin. It wasn't about her rank. It was about his lack of discipline. The 4 colonels went into full containment mode, coordinating the extraction of Major Ka and the legal proceedings for Thorne. 6 months later, the military court-martial found former Staff Sergeant Max Thorne guilty of assault on a superior officer, conduct unbecoming and compromising classified operations. He was sentenced to reduction to private, forfeiture of all pay, 18 months confinement, and a dishonorable discharge. The anchor was smashed. Major Ka was fine, of course, returning to her primary assignment. But her report, the one written from the perspective of a quiet recruit, triggered a full overhaul of training security across the entire army. She exposed vulnerabilities that only someone living the cover could have. Found, I think about her sometimes. Major Ka, the quietest person in the room. The one we all overlooked, who was actually the most dangerous, most highly trained operative on the entire installation. She taught us all that day that true strength isn't about being the biggest or the loudest, but about knowing exactly who you are, what you can do, and keeping it a secret until the perfect moment to strike. And sometimes that moment arrives just 7 minutes after a bully decides to throw a punch. So, what do you think? Was Thorne's sentence too harsh, considering he genuinely had no idea who she was? Or did his act of criminal violence against a subordinate, regardless of her real rank, justify the full weight of military justice? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the incredible truth hidden beneath the surface of everyday life.